Blue here, and you know what I gotta do? I gotta redeem. Well, I'm not so sure about that, so instead I'll relieve. But you know what else I gotta do? I gotta receive. But most important, I gotta believe. Just like the paper thin dog named Paper Thin. If you didn't somehow catch on, I'm talking about PaRappa the Rapper. Yes, the dog voiced by the rap vocalist of Knuckles' theme in Sonic Adventure. His game, named What Do You Expect, was released in 1996 for the PlayStation. To describe development briefly, it started production a couple years earlier as Sony were trying to create as many games as they could for their new console. Rodney Greenblatt, the artist, was making product designs for Sony at the time. He was somewhat popular in Japan for his unique art style. The director for the game, I'm assuming it's pronounced Masayu Matsura, enjoyed Greenblatt's work and wanted him to create character designs. Along with a lyrics writer named Ryu, PaRappa the Rapper came to be, and practically invented rhythm games as a whole. PaRappa definitely helped kick off the genre. It was like groundwork for how feature music-centric games would function. The blueprints are to press buttons in the order they appear on screen, typically to the beat of the song. It's glorified Simon Says, but with some style. To this day, the chorus stayed the same, for the most part, but the point is that PaRappa essentially created an entirely new video game genre. While it was only moderately popular worldwide, in Japan it was a huge success. As for me, I've always been a huge fan of rhythm games. I will admit I'm far, and I mean far from the best at them, but that doesn't stop me from getting a lot of enjoyment from these. Guitar Hero, Rock Band, 6 Minutes of Beat Mania on the Wonder Swan, Taiko Drum Master, and I could never forget Rhythm Heaven, but that's about all I played for a while. Oh wait, there's also Wii Music! When it comes to my experience with PaRappa, the first I had ever seen of this rhythm and poetry good boy was in Super Smash Bros. For the PS3. I don't want to go too in-depth about the game for now, but this is repulsive. A handful of 5 years passed by, and a certain shy guy who's pretty rad suggested I get PaRappa 2 due to my drought of PS2 games. I religiously played that for a couple days, and immediately bought the PSP port of PaRappa 1 so I could see the series' roots. And then at MomoCon I managed to find a copy for a third of the normal asking price. So now that my convoluted story's out of the way, how about I finally quit stalling and talk about the game proper? We begin this tale with PaRappa and his friends watching some movie about a sepia filter featuring Jet Baby, who Greenblatt explains by singing. After the movie ends, the group are praising Jet Baby for how cool she is. PaRappa especially looks up to her. They head over to Chunky Burger, where we're informally introduced to these characters. PJ Barry, a lazy bear obsessed with feeding, I never thought I'd relate to a video game character so well. Katie Cat, an enthusiastic cat. Sunny Funny, the only one who's not an animal and apparently the most perfect being in existence. And PaRappa, the one on the front cover. Cue the intro.
You gotta do what?
I gotta believe!
And I Need to Become a Hero, two bullies come bursting into the restaurant telling everyone to scram. And yeah, the scram bully suddenly becomes attracted to Sunny and attempts to ask her out. Sunny just wants him to quit it though. But luckily,
There's no need to fear.
the textbook definition for narcissism shows up. Joshin is apparently the best at everything, but he's also the most obnoxious, self-centered guy in the PaRappaverse. Joshin tries to stop the bullies by gloating about how pretentious he is. This bores the rest of the gang, so they leave while PaRappa sits there thinking to himself how he could become a hero. If he was strong, he'd be able to fight the bad guys that did nothing at all. Then it strikes him.
Yeah, I know. I gotta believe!
PaRappa decides to train at the Fruits Dojo to learn karate from Chop Chop Master Onion, who should be self-apparent from the name alone. He agrees to teach PaRappa skills that are necessary for his goals. Meanwhile, the bullies pass out from Joshin's high levels of narcissism. And you guys sit in the back. PaRappa and his friends are pondering what they should do today. PaRappa suggests they go down to the beach, but unfortunately, none of them have a license or a car to drive anywhere. But check that out, the new Super Stretch Limo 900! And damn it. Joshin steals PaRappa's thunder by offering the girls for a ride to the beach, but he lets the other two tag along in the back. He then proceeds to crash into Fat Donut, turning it into a flat donut. PaRappa then dreams about having his own car. That way, he'd be able to take Sunny anywhere he wants. Then he realizes,
Yeah, I know. I gotta believe!
he meets with Instructor Mussolini, a stern driving teacher who decided it was necessary to discuss this all in the final stage of the game. She warns PaRappa the driving won't be so easy, which is a blatant lie because this level is a cakewalk. PaRappa earns his license in the end, while ruining his picture because of the confetti. In My Dad's Gonna Commit Child Abuse, PaRappa borrows his dad's car exactly 10 minutes after earning his license. He pulls up the fat donut to take his friends for a ride. They have a lot of fun driving around the mountains and backflipping off cliffs. Sunny is especially enjoying herself and wishes they could go someplace far, far away. This causes PaRappa to dream about himself on a date with Sunny. I'll let the cutscene explain why that's not a good idea.
Cool.
They all float back down to Earth, unharmed Wayne somehow, but the car is totaled. PaRappa worries how his father will react and wonders how he'll ever make back the money he needs. When suddenly...
Yeah, I know. I gotta believe.
PaRappa makes his way to the flea market where we're introduced to Prince Fleaswallow, a relaxed, easygoing Jamaican accent frog. He teaches PaRappa that the key to selling goods isn't with money, it's love, even though he completely deceits that statement by claiming
Money, money, money is all you need.
Regardless, PaRappa raises enough money to buy a new car. And guaranteed to catch her hard, Kitty is planning out Sunny's birthday party with PaRappa and PJ. They decide on who helps out with what by playing Japanese rock, paper, scissors. PaRappa is left with buying a cake, so he visits the bakery shop and buys a daisy cake to impress Sunny. As soon as he steps outside though... Son of a gun! Jochin shows off his cake for Sunny, which is 42 layers tall. Each one represents the steps towards his relationship with her, including... The 40th floor represents the obstacles that we must face. He suddenly leaves while bumping PaRappa into his cake he just bought. PaRappa imagines Katie snapping at him for failing to realize birthday parties without cakes are like dance floors without her. PaRappa tries to determine what he's gonna do because he's almost out of money. And you guessed it!
Yeah, I know. I've gotta believe.
Sheep Cheep the incredibly strict timing chicken's cooking show comes on, showing how to make a seafood cake. And after 40 million failed attempts, PaRappa is able to successfully follow the instructions and bake Sunny's cake. Afterwards, he applies the final touches and heads to bed. In full tank, Sunny's birthday party commences and the group celebrate by eating the cake. And by the group, I solely mean PaRappa. Oh nice, Jochin just proves how his actual relationship with Sunny is. Kitty lets PaRappa be alone with Sunny, so she drags PJ away from his bread roll and leaves. But as they stare into the sunset... PaRappa ends up feeling really sick, which Sunny assumes is him acting manlier and gets turned on. As they drive back home, PaRappa spots a gas station on the way and rushes off to the bathroom there. But what a coincidence, the rap masters from before are also waiting in line. They come to the conclusion that the best solution for who goes first is to rap for it. PaRappa manages to win and relinquishes his mighty need to use the restroom. After he finishes his business, he offers to drive Sunny home, although she's disappointed by his lack of manliness. In I Gotta Believe, Mussolini sings Funny Love while PaRappa is invited to perform at Club Fun. He offers Sunny to tag along and thankfully she accepts. After meeting with her father and picking her up, they drive down to the club and are greeted by Katie at the entrance. They all head inside and get bombarded by random-ass background characters, and I hate Jochin so much now. We then see PaRappa brought up to the stage by the owner of the club, MC King Kong Mushi. Thusly, the final level of the game begins. We then finish the story of the group entering a theater, as soon as the movie ends for some reason. Then roll credits and, oh sweet, a teaser for PaRappa 2! That'll come out soon, right? Right? While it's definitely not the pinnacle of storytelling by any means, the plot is a satisfying drive for playing. The slice-of-life approach helps establish the universe this game takes place in. The characters themselves are pretty simple when you break it down, but they do anything if not add to the overall quirkiness. The humor also increases that pile of charm. It primarily consists of visual gags, and I appreciate how ridiculous and over the top they can be. There really isn't much I have against the story, to be honest, and seeing how the game is designed around the plot, I'm glad they pulled it off exceptionally well for what it is. I won't deny the cutscenes themselves are dated, but what do you really expect? It's a PS1 game. Though if I'm being honest, I think PaRappa's presentation holds up much better than most games from that era. Voice acting in video games was primitive in the 90s to say the least. While there are some gleaming exceptions like Metal Gear Solid, many, and I mean many games are a perfect example of what I mean. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Mega Man 8, Sonic Adventure, you name it. Any type of bad voice acting you like, yes, they've got it.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
Mega Man, today we finish this.
Hey, Bass! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Shut up.
PaRappa, on the other hand, is way more solid in the voice acting department, and it was released before most of these. For one, PaRappa was translated by someone who's actually fluent in English. Plus, it was dubbed with the language in mind, which I think is a factor as to why the portrayals sound better. Speaking of which, the cast is pretty competent if I say so myself. Everyone fits the role of their character just fine.
Whoa, check that out. That's the new Super Stretch Limo 900.
Yeah, the maximum speed is tuned up to 463,200.
And vinyl Panther seats, too.
You know, this is really a lot of fun. Wouldn't it be nice if we could keep driving and go someplace far, far away?
PaRappa! What do you expect to do without a cake? A birthday party without a cake is like a dance floor without me. Do you understand that?
I mean, I wish the lip sync wasn't non-existent and some characters had exemplified more energy, but I wouldn't say other games from that era had it much better.
Shut up!
The cutscenes themselves obviously aren't the best when it comes to quality. Everything just looks extremely pixelated and compressed, and they don't even take up the entire screen. I can understand why they look shoddy, but why are they in this small window? The only other games I can think of that play cutscenes like this were Sega CD games, but those have the excuse of being on a weaker console. And seeing how Jammer Lammy has double the amount of cutscenes, I doubt it's because of size limitations either. So I have no idea what the problem was. That being said, I can't go without mentioning the sound design. Whoever worked on the audio for the cutscenes succeeded. The songs have this Saturday morning cartoon vibe to them, and they suit the mood of whatever's happening throughout the story. And the music is always switching out, giving a more dynamic feel. All in all, if I can feel immersed with potato quality cutscenes, then that's a sign they did a job well done. The story is short but sweet, so how about the aesthetics? I'd argue that audio visuals are the most integral aspect of any rhythm game, because when you break it down, they're style over substance. Featuring satisfying visual feedback and fun songs to play are more significant in creating a music game. I think PaRappa delivers in both regards. The graphics themselves really aren't pushing the PS1 that much. I'm not familiar with the technical side of things, but when it comes to environments and geometry, everything looks rather simple. The art direction, on the other hand, makes up for this. As I alluded to, Rodney Greenblatt's style is really unique to the point it makes other unique art styles pale in uniqueness. In order to preserve his designs, the characters are two-dimensional while the worlds are three-dimensional. It's almost like a pop-up book. Or I don't know, Paper Mario. Anyways, because of the art style, I feel like the environments benefit from their simplicity rather than detract. What is impressive though is the use of motion capture for character animations, which wasn't so common in games back then. The animations are expressive and do a good job providing that satisfying visual feedback I was talking about. They still look pretty fluid and mesh well with the characters being flat and all. None of them stood out as particularly janky to me aside from background NPCs, but I can excuse those. Of course, there's also audio to worry about. I've already explained the music in the cutscenes, but what about the songs we are playing? They're outstanding. Judging from the name of the game, they're based off rap music, and I'd be lying if I said these raps weren't catchy and memorable. Granted, they're also cheesier than a 3/4 pound of Gouda, but it's the correct kind of cheesy. They'll be played throughout the entire video though, and I'll go more in depth about the songs in a little bit, so I won't be showcasing them here like usual. So far, this game has been oozing with charm. The story and audio visuals are a testament to that. How does PaRappa play though? Well, I already stated before that the gameplay is style over substance. It's as basic as you can get. The teacher will rap their phrase and you're expected to repeat it note for note. Most rhythm games don't really utilize the whole call and response system, but pressing buttons when they appear on screen is still the traditional formula. With that in mind, you progress through PaRappa with 6 different levels. They start with the cutscene explaining the events, the song itself, and then an epilogue to wrap it all up. Rinse and repeat this process until the end of the game. Depending on how well you're able to replicate the lyrics determines your ranking. If you screw up 2 times in a row, you'll drop to bad. Mess up twice more and you'll plummet to awful. And if you continue to fail or can't raise your rank back to good by the end, you'll be forced to retry. What I appreciate about PaRappa is the way it illustrates how poorly you're playing. There's of course the prominent quacking, which can get distracting and mess with your flow if you focus on it too much. The music itself will also sound more off-tone the worse you get. And on top of that, they visually convey how much you suck, such as PaRappa swerving all around in Stage 2, or the flea market falling apart in Stage 3. The end results aren't so nice either. I never thought I'd see the day someone gets so pissed off they give birth. Another interesting aspect of PaRappa is how the game teaches you the mechanics. It starts off easy enough and slowly but surely evolves the further you get. Chop Chop Master Onion's rap is all about the basics. Each button represents a different karate move.
Kick, punch, chop, lock, duck, jump, turn, hold.
You begin by only hitting one note per line before ramping up 2 and even 3 in the second half. Fundamentally, it's the fundamentals. Instructor Mussolini's car rap focuses more on comboing the buttons into a phrase. The different lines you'll use are also variations of each other. And also, you're not just repeating words now, you're repeating commands. Prince Fleaswallow's rap is all about mashing the same button with the flow of the song. By now, you've advanced all the way up to full sentences. You end up with stuff like,
In the rain or in the snow. In the rain or in the snow.
and my favorite line of all,
Money, money, money is all you need. Money, money, money is all you need.
even the sentences themselves have repetition to resemble the playstyle of this stage. Cheep Cheep the Cooking Chickens rap is the most advanced level up to this point. It's kind of like a fusion of Fleaswallow and Mussolini, with full sentences that you play to the beat, but the buttons are comboed together instead of repeated. Examples include,
Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl.
Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl.
M-I-X the flour into the bowl.
M-I-X the flour into the bowl.
This level also has incredibly strict timing, causing it to be the most annoying level in PaRappa 1. All Masters rap is just as it sounds like, a remix of every stage so far. This is where the varying playstyles really start to show. You've got altered but familiar lines such as,
Kick, punch, turn, and chop the door.
Kick, punch, turn, and chop the door.
Did you check the toilets on the right?
Did you check the toilets on the right?
In the rain or in the snow, I got the funky flow, but now I really got to go.
In the rain or in the snow, you got the funky flow, but now you really gotta go.
I am a chicken from the kitchen, and I ain't kidding, although nothing is written.
You are a chicken from the kitchen, and you ain't kidding, although nothing is written.
it's like a review of sorts for all the previous raps. Last but not least, we have PaRappa's live rap featuring MC King Kong Mushi. This takes all your skills learned from before and challenges you for a real song for once. Instead of repeating what the teachers say, PaRappa makes his own lines. Of course, the instructions are the exact same, but what he raps differs. This is definitely my favorite stage in the game. My only complaint is that PaRappa's voice samples sound really muffled compared to the rest of the songs. As for the phrases themselves, we've got
H to the E to the R to the O, and here comes your hero, huh? Here we go.
Beat to the A, to the R, to the A. For rapper the name, I rap every day.
and the iconic,
I gotta be Dean. I gotta be me. I gotta be Dean. I gotta believe.
it's no wonder his final smash is this. The gameplay really doesn't seem like anything special, does it? Well, there is one mechanic of PaRappa that sets it apart from just about any other rhythm game, the freestyling. The real goal of PaRappa is not to play the songs to perfection. Your true intention is to ignore the rap master's phrases and improvise. If you can create a rap that outclasses the teachers, they'll leave the stage and you'll enter cool mode. But how can you pull this off? Well, first of all, you'll need to finish the main story at least once. This isn't a requirement in the other games, but with how short PaRappa 1 is, it doesn't seem so bad they locked this off. Plus, it probably helps in the long run since you'd want to memorize these songs before ad-libbing it. Anyways, you play the stages in a similar fashion. Listen to the teacher, although instead of repeating exactly what they say, you come up with your own line using the same buttons. Playing it safe or mashing the button randomly isn't enough. This requires effort. Well, usually those work. This is also where the D-pad comes into play. Holding left or right will repeat the last word rapped. It's not a requirement as it doesn't take away or increase points, but it does add more depth to the freestyling. If you manage to create a unique enough response that floats with the song while the cool meter is flashing, or get lucky, the teacher will exit the stage and you'll be left on your own. Now each button represents one of the 6 different commands from the songs, such as in Mussolini's rap, cross does step on the, triangle executes now turn to the, square and circle do gas and brakes respectively, while L1 and R1 are, unsurprisingly, left and right. While you're in cool mode, you need to rap to the beat of the song until you reach the end, or just smash the buttons.
Money, money, money is all you need. Money, money, money is all you need.
If you fail to improvise properly 2 intervals in a row, the teacher returns and you drop back to good rank, although it's still possible to re-enter cool mode again. But if you do manage to remain cool for the duration of the song, a crown appears in place of PaRappa on the level select, and an alternate ending will play. I will admit the differences in these are pretty minor though, like PaRappa won't ruin his license photo, or Sunny will have fallen asleep in the car. Better than nothing, I guess. I won't deny freestyling is an interesting method for completion. Whereas most other music games expect you to play flawlessly and nothing more, PaRappa offers a distinctive path and still stands out despite being one of the first of its kind. It's just a shame I find there to be a ton of problems with cool mode. For one, the game doesn't give you a good understanding of what counts as a proper freestyle and what doesn't. So half the time it feels like an act of trial and error where you randomly input button combinations until they let you in. Sometimes, even when using the exact same improvisation that I used before to enter cool mode, it won't count. I'm not saying they should have spelled it out for you, but I'd be singing a different tune if the first game had something akin to the indicators in PaRappa 2. The other flaw? The improvising feels too limited. You've got 6 different lines to work with, which is understandable for earlier levels, but by the second half, there are plenty of phrases and they still only drew from 6. You might argue how they only had that many buttons to work with. In that case, I point to the D-pad. Yeah, left and right are already taken up, but why couldn't up or down have been utilized for extra phrases or words? To illustrate how clunky it really is, during stage 6 R triggers I gotta, while L goes through redeem, relieve, receive, and believe. You can't choose one of them specifically, you have to cycle through each and every single one. You can still pass cool mode just fine with what they give you, but freestyling ends up not feeling as free as it could. But everything PaRappa 1 has going for it is ruined by the note detection. I understand this was one of the first rhythm games, but the note detection is horrifyingly wonky. The teacher's phrases never match up with the button commands. They show up slightly after instead, and it makes everything confusing. So when am I supposed to hit the notes? By stages 4 and 5, I felt like I was required to freestyle to pass them. Even if that's what they were going for, it doesn't excuse the inaccurate audio-visual sync. And to think I was just praising that a while ago. I thought it might have just been an emulation problem, and to be fair, I was playing this on my PS3, and as I've learned, its built-in emulator really isn't that great. So I tested PaRappa on an authentic PS1, and it's somewhat better, but far from flawless. The notes still don't line up that well. What are my other solutions? Go out and find a CRT, buy RGB SCART cables? Well, if I have to go that far in order to play this game properly, then that proves my point that note detection is aged like milk. Something I noticed when I replayed the levels for completion was that the timing felt way more generous. Suddenly, it was as if I could play the levels normally. But whoops, I have no reason to not freestyle because that's all there's left to do. So what, did they intentionally make these levels harder to play the first time around to pad out game time? Is it due to cool mode being unavailable initially? Am I just imagining it? Either way, it feels like a learning curve, but not a good one. Beyond all that, what's your reward for suffering through terrible input lag and achieving cool mode on every level? KT and the Sunny Funny Band. It's a cutscene of Katie and Sunny dancing. You can change their outfits, move the camera around, and that's about it. It's more interesting than some 100% rewards I've seen, but this isn't something I'd write home about. I would have preferred something like a sound test, as cliche as that would have been. Those are all my thoughts on PaRappa the Rapper. If I had to describe this game in a sentence, it's a humongous mountain of charm, personality, and nothing more. There's no denying how influential PaRappa was though, as it practically set the standard for something new, so I respect it in those regards. Aside from those, it really isn't that substantial anymore. The cutscenes and even the graphics in some areas haven't stood the test of time, and the gameplay is bogged down by the awkward timing and unreliable note detection. The length of the game is also really short, and the replay value doesn't fare much better. It has been ported to the PSP, but Sony thought if they added nothing worthwhile and barely fixed anything, it would be a hit all over again. Then they re-released it on PS4, and as it turns out, it's literally just the PSP version running in an emulator. I can't believe they were relying on this to determine the future of the franchise. Not like a remake would help anyways. PaRappa 1 may have been important, but it's not a game where you can really tweak much without creating something entirely different. That's where Jammer, Lamy, and PaRappa 2 step in. I won't be spoiling much about them since, hint hint, I'll be reviewing them as well, but they take PaRappa's formula and change, adjust, and improve upon it. At the end of the day, I still enjoy the first PaRappa, but only for its charm. In the case that PaRappa entices you, what should you do? Well, I'd only recommend giving it a shot if you're already a fan of the series. Along with what I mentioned, PaRappa 1 is really expensive for some reason. Would you call $50 for debatably the weakest one a good entry point? The re-releases, as much as they suck, are at least much cheaper, but you might be better off starting with one of the sequels. Anyways, until next time, this is BlueNin10, wrapping up the rapping.
It's just you and me, my friend and me. You try so hard.
Stay